Hey there, welcome to the Landlocked Podcast, where each short episode we talk about strategies, experiences, and the tools to help you launch, grow, and scale your land investing business. Learn how to run your land investing remotely, find out ways to build consistency in your processes, and learn how other everyday land investors are winning so you can get to the next step closer to your land investing goals. And I'm your host of the Landlocked Podcast by Pebble, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here from the Landlocked Podcast by Pebble. I've got a great guest here with me today, Ajay Sharma. He's going to be sharing with us his journey, how he got started, and some pretty amazing stuff. And in the timeline that he got things accomplished in is really amazing. So I'm excited to share this episode with you guys. I do want to let you know that the episode did get cut. There was a little bit of a technical issue, but I think after the post-production, we should be able to smoothen that out. Other than that, this podcast is brought to you by Pebble. If you are looking for a platform to help you systemize and so that you can actually sustainably grow and scale your land investing business, looking for consistency in the way you run your business, make sure you check out Pebble. Head over to pebblerei.com. Feel free to book a free demo with me, but Pebble really is all about centralizing your data and your processes, allowing you to do things like your mailers, generating documents, tracking leads, managing your property data, all from one centralized platform. Feel free, again, to head over to pebblerei.com, hit book a demo. You're going to actually jump on a call with me personally. Love to see if something like this is a good fit for you, and also leave you with other resources that may help you to grow your land investing business. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode here with Ajay Sharma. Enjoy the show. Cheers. Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Jesse here from the Landlocked Podcast by Pebble. I've got a special guest here today, Ajay. Ajay, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, Jesse. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Ajay, I think we've crossed paths before, and it wasn't until recently we got a chance to cross paths again. And I know you come from a very, let's say, a unique journey to kind of getting started into land and really sort of dominating the space. I like to use that word, dominating. But yeah, dominating the space here. So I'd love to talk about your journey here. And let's just start with, how did you get started with land?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was pretty young when I got started. For some context, I graduated college in May of 2020. So I got my bachelor's over at the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. Loved my time there. Shortly after graduating, though, was like, okay, I'm ready. Let's start investing in real estate, right? Was pretty excited. Financial freedom, all the things, passive income, sounds great. But pretty quickly after graduating, and for some context, I had a great job. I was making pretty good money at this job, but regardless of how good your job is right after college, you're not pocketing 20 grand a month, right? And so it was a lot trickier than I thought to buy properties, especially because I wasn't looking for like a live-in unit, what's that called, a house hack or anything like that. I was trying to get, my own rental property, and I wasn't trying to do any of the funky, seller finance, owner finance, any of that stuff really. I was like, okay, let's just buy some properties. Let's figure it out. And as I did, even the cheap stuff, if you're buying stuff for 100 grand, you need 20 grand down. Didn't have 20 grand yet. So I'm on YouTube one day, and, I'm just going to very quickly plug RE Tipster. Got an RE Tipster video there from Seth, and it was just like the 7 ways to get $1,000 or more in passive income with vacant land. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So quickly started diving into that content. Was really excited about it. The barrier to entry is just so much lower for land, right?
That's
and so
right.
I'm like, okay, I think the wheels are churning. My hamster was spinning. He's running the wheel.
Yeah.
So I bought the RE Tipster Masterclass and just kind of took action really quickly. Within a week, I think I had my mailbox, my website, my phone number all up, ready to go. Sent out my first mailer a few days after that. And about 2 weeks after that, 3 weeks or so, I had my first deal. So, was awesome. I got really quick results, and I'm super grateful for it.
I feel like now I have a bone to pick with you. I tell people my claim to fame here is the exact same thing. I fell upon land accidentally. I met, Seth and I were talking about something totally different. He told me he did land, and that's how I found land. Got started on the Saturday, got my mailing out by the Thursday, and then it's my first 10K within 4 weeks of hearing the words land investing. So there we go. Now we've got some of the beef on, but that's really cool to hear. Taking action. And That's interesting that we both came out of that same program, and you got started so quickly. But very cool to hear. So you got started a couple years ago, and then what was that sort of like? And what I like, sorry, I'm gonna segue here. What I like about talking to people like yourself, Ajay, is it's very humble beginnings, and you really just kind of took action. And the great thing is, it's not even that long ago, right? You mentioned just a couple years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years now.
If you can reflect back on when you got started, you mentioned, what did you have set up right away?
Yeah, it was just a website. So I used the REI Land Lead site.
Yeah.
I had a PO box, just a UPS PO box down the street,
Yeah.
and I think at the time I was using one of these voicemail services. Something freedom voicemail. So I can't
Okay.
remember the name of it.
Okay.
One of those.
Yeah.
Freedom
Yeah.
Voice. Maybe that's what it was.
Sure. Got you. Yeah, and that really all it takes is just, I mean, you don't technically even need a website to kind of get started. You just kind of go out
No.
there, get your millings out there, and have a phone, and it's crazy. I think a lot of people overthink when it comes to getting started. Heck, I'm a Canadian here. I don't know about you. I didn't even have I did everything under my personal name for the first year. Now, I'm not giving legal advice, but you really can sort of run on a skimpy budget and get things done and really learn the ropes. Now, clearly you've learned the ropes here. Tell us what that looked like, and as you sort of got started a couple of years ago, how did things start slowly evolving from there?
Yeah. So I got my first deal, and I will mention too, you got me beat on your claim to fame because I actually only made about $9,000 on that first deal. So,
I might be rounding up a little bit here.
Okay. Well, I've got, I'm in the four figures, you're in the five, so you've got me beat, Jesse. I bring that up though. Yeah. So I got that deal, and it actually wasn't until another 4 months that I got my second acquisition. So it took me quite a bit to get some momentum. A reason for that being I had only sent out 150 mailers to get that first deal. And it was, yellow letter postcards. Pretty funny looking back on it.
Yes.
But it had built the assumption in my mind that that's all it took to get a deal, right?
Yeah.
Mail out 150 postcards, make $9,000. It was awesome, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I was going to be a millionaire overnight. It seemed like I had stumbled into gold, and I had, but not quite the gold that I thought it was. And so it took me a bit to find my next deal. I think fast forward a year after beginning, and I'd only really completed about 6 transactions, but that sixth one was a bit of a whale. And so I got a lot of cash pretty quickly and was like, okay, I think it's time to turn this into a business. I don't want this to be a side hustle. I don't want this to be a little bit of extra income on the side. I want regular deal flow, buying and selling, cash flow management, all the things, eventually build a team, that kind of stuff. So it took me about a year to get there. But once I did, I started investing in myself. I started investing in coaching, and I really decided to turn the crank and change how I was running my land investing business.
You really started to prove the concept to yourself, and then at a certain time, you thought, "Hey, I'm correct me if I'm wrong. You're looking for consistency to actually grow something,
Right.
that is sustainable." Well, I mean, other than that being like a whale of a deal, why suddenly you decide I want to make this into a business?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm a bit of a conference junkie. I love going to these events, and it's been tough, with COVID and everything, especially that first year. But after my big deal, I had gone to it's called The Vault. If anybody here if you like YouTube at all, Valuetainment's a really big business education content platform, and I'm a big fan of Patrick Bet-David. Well, as they have an annual event called The Vault. I just went 2 weeks ago, and I went the year prior. At this event, though, Patrick kind of challenged everybody, and he asked us, are you dating your business or are you married to your business? And I didn't have an answer. I remember thinking about it, and I was like, what am I doing? And it was like, I am dating my business, right? And what that meant was I wasn't taking it seriously, and dating's kind of a spectrum. So take take this with a grain of salt here, right? Sure. But my point being, I wasn't committed. Right? Yeah. There was no ring on this business's finger. And I had decided, I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. Yeah. And I was like, well, I've stumbled into something, right? I think this is the avenue.
Yeah.
And so it was the shift for me, and I got pretty excited about it.
That's awesome. So you started to look back what you were doing, you then started to take things a little bit more seriously and get committed and get married with the business. So, you mentioned that you started investing yourself. What did that look like? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, great question. So after just a big injection of cash flow, I got into quite a bit of coaching. Today, I've actually got 5 different coaches in my life. It's pretty funny. 2 of which are land investing specific coaches. So both Clint Turner and Travis King have been huge in my success.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I have a life coach, an accountability coach, and then I also work with a personal trainer. So, different disciplines. But in my mind, if I can work with subject matter experts, I can accelerate my path towards success. So
Yeah.
that was one way I invested in myself. I was already, I don't want to say well read by this time, but I enjoyed reading self-development books,
Sure.
that kind of How to Win Friends and Influence People, Think and Grow Rich. A lot of
Yeah.
the ones that everybody else read, Mark Manson's Subtle Art of Not Giving an F.
Yeah.
Great book, really. If
Yeah.
you can get past all the cursing in it, I mean, it is filled and jam-packed with lessons.
Sure.
So a lot of reading, a lot of books, podcasts, Ari Tipster, REI Conversion, was learning from other land investors. I guess now landlocked, right? So really just dove into education, dove into making myself better, dove into talking to people who were smarter and more experienced than me.
Sure. And that's I've heard this from one of my coaches before. He said there isn't somebody who's successful without a coach out there. I mean, everybody has a coach, and it's one of those things that I don't know about you, Ajay, but I was very skeptical of coaching and all of that.
You should be.
Yeah, well, but and when you find that right person, it is it's transformative. It really is transformative, and
Yeah.
it's great to hear that you mentioned 2 amazing people in this space, Clint Turner, Travis King. They're both doing amazing stuff, making huge impact in the space. And I encourage you guys that are listening to this, please check them out. We work very closely with Travis here, and he's been on doing some of the webinars that we've done in the past. So if you head over to pebblerei.com/classroom, you can watch some of the past webinars. There's nothing to sell you on those. So take it. Check it out. And make sure I'm going to drop one here for, I know we mentioned a plug-in for RE Tips, but also with Travis, head over to landinvestingmastery.com, and he's got a great platform there. So do check that out. But nonetheless, it's great to hear that you're doing some coaching. We want to hear a little bit about the nitty-gritty here. I was thinking I could ask you about some specific nitty-gritties, or why don't we just dive into a deal that you may have done recently? Like, what better way than to kind of like walk us through on the kind of deals that you're doing nowadays? I mean, you're obviously you're doing well. What does a deal look like to you? Can you walk us through one of your later deals recently?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, I do a plethora of different types of deals, working on becoming, more focused. But I've done infill lots, I've done rural land. I've used wholesaling, I've done assignments, I've used double closing. So a lot of tactics and tools out there. Most recently took up my first minor land subdivision though. And I think it's a really fun story there. So I'm really active in the Facebook groups. And when I say active, more so that I'm scrolling than posting, probably a little bit more than,
Sure.
a little bit more than I'd like to admit.
Yeah.
But I had seen somebody post a 40 acre in Maricopa County. And for, anybody that works in Arizona, that Maricopa County is super hot. It's for those that don't know, it's the same county that Phoenix is in. And so I was like, okay, this looks interesting. It's a 40 acre, I don't know anything about Arizona, but let's dive in and see, let's just take the next step. Let's see what we can find out. And so I had checked kind of on the land sites. I had looked on Zillow, right, and seen, okay, this is cheaper than anything that's currently listed. There are some sold comps that look a little bit higher. But again, for anybody that works in Arizona, the counties are very spread out. Yeah. So it's pretty tricky to pinpoint that stuff sometimes, just depending on the land product that it is. And so I was like, okay, how can I figure out the evaluation on this property, right? And so I had used a principle from the book by Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. by rather than myself, trying to figure out how do I comp this, say, okay, who do I know that can comp this? And I mentioned earlier, I do coaching with Travis King, who does a lot of investing in Arizona. And so I kind of double who not how this by not asking Travis to comp it, but actually ask for what agent he uses in this region. And so, a little bit of a who not how
Wow.
inception there.
Yeah.
But I got in contact with his agent, and he had comped out the property at about 120,000. For some context, this other investor who was actually wholesaling the lot had it listed at $80,000. And so I'm like, okay, there's some spread here, but it's not a home run deal, right? And so I had looked at the numbers and said, where can I get to make this a comfortable investment, right? And I was like, okay, if I offered him 72,000, right, that'd be about 60% of market value. I'm pretty comfortable with that being a macro flip, decent exit strategy, not a ton of, margin, but not an insignificant amount either, fairly insulated from risk in a hot area. And so negotiated with the seller, actually got to 72,000, which was great. But then I really want everybody to listen in on this. I've got a little trade secret when you're negotiating, especially with other investors here. So I like to close through title, especially on bigger deals like this.
Yep.
And we had already come to a price. And again, he was assigning this lot. I think he was tapped out in terms of liquidity. And so he just needed to assign this over to another investor. We'd come to terms on price. And I waited until then to ask, who pays for closing? So the reason I strategically waited until after we agreed on price was, number one, it doesn't open up negotiations for price again, right? And number two, if you look at it through their perspective, right, somebody who's trying to assign the lot is just trying to get a check. And odds are they're not going to want to market this more aggressively and try to find another buyer. You've got a buyer on the hook, right? And if the difference is $800 to $1,200 in closing costs, you're not really going to want to open that Pandora's box back up to negotiations, right? And so more often than not, I have found people will volunteer, I'll pay for closing, which is crazy. But if you just wait until after negotiations, again, this usually works with investors rather than like retail sellers. So like, don't use that with, again, us paying for closing is usually like an advantage in negotiations as investors. But when you're working with another investor, it's a cool little trick that I'll use sometimes to save a quick $1,000. And if it doesn't work, you just pay for closing anyways, which you were going to at the onset, right? So
Listen, I hope you guys that are listening take a few seconds back, listen to this again. Ajay literally saved you a grand on your next deal here. That is crazy. Thank you for sharing that. But yes, I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. It's a fun little trick I use. But so beyond that, I'm thinking, okay, so now I've got one exit strategy, right? But how can I maximize value on this? I know 40 acres in Arizona are famous for minor lot subdivisions. Arizona's got super friendly laws. So again, a little bit of who, not how. First thing I did is called the county, right? You always want to call zoning and planning first and see if there is anything that you're missing, understand the zoning, understand the land use, make sure there's not any future land use that you're unaware of, and planning that you're unaware of that might mess up a potential subdivision. And so verified information with them, just ask them, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. What do I need to be weary of? What do I need to do to finish that process? What does the timeline look for that? Even ask for vendors, maybe, if they have any, if you're looking for like a surveyor. Sometimes they know people, sometimes they don't. And then I also scheduled a meeting with Mike Marshall, who I think you've had on here before. So again, I'm a big fan of trusting the experts. Trust but verify. So of course, like, take meetings with zoning and planning, take meetings with, Mike Marshall, and then also look over your own due diligence so that you sleep a lot better at night. And I did all those things, and I will be the first to say I sleep very, very well at night. So got, a series of green lights there, and went back to my agent and basically said, hey, what does this look like from a price point if we sell it as a 20 and 2 10-acre lots? And so he came back and gave us a number. And so I'm proud to say, after some surveyor costs and closing costs and recording fees and stuff, we were all in at about 80,000. But we currently have all the parcels listed for a combination of 190,000.
Oh,
so pretty solid deal there. And to recap those numbers, we bought it, purchase price was 72. It was worth about 120. So we were able to boost the evaluation about 60% by a minor land subdivision.
I love that. And I know you just mentioned Mike Marshall. If you guys are listening right now and want to learn more about forcing appreciation, check out episode number 71 of the Landlocked podcast. We had Mike Marshall on here talking about that. In fact, Travis also talked about it in episode number 70. And this is where, like, okay, you guys have your bread and butter down, the flips, but now you guys are looking further than that, than just the basics, and starting to think, okay, what other creative things can I do to force some appreciation and really get more out of what you're already doing? Let me ask you, how much more time did it take than if you hadn't actually like subdivided the property?
Yeah, great question. So I think we got a surveyor out there to record everything in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
Keep
Wow.
in mind, it's pretty fast.
Yeah.
We paid a premium. So like you can ask for what's kind of the expedited survey rate, right? And then talk to a lot of vendors.
Sure.
Do not call the first surveyor, but also make sure they do good work. So there's a balance here when you're vetting new vendors, right? If you can get referrals, obviously like ask people who are doing subdivisions. Hey, who'd you use? What'd you do? What was the timeline? Communicate all those things on the front end, set expectations with whatever vendor you're looking to work with. But they were able to get everything surveyed in about 3 weeks. What we did was just asked our, assigner, hey, how much time do you have on closing? And I basically just pushed it out so that everything was, timed out pretty perfectly. The surveyor was willing to go out there without needing the owner's signature as long as we were willing to pay. And so we had them do all that and then basically closed on it, had docs ready, and were able to, have the new platting recorded pretty much instantly after taking title to it.
Wow. Well, congrats on that. So that has all wrapped up now. Is that right?
It's wrapped up in the sense that it is now on the market. So It's been on the market for about 3 weeks where, the market's definitely slowed down just a little bit, especially at price points just a tad higher. So I'm not worried about it. It's in a good area. We have margin if we need to decrease pricing, but anything less than 30 days, I don't think is anything to be concerned about.
I know you're enjoying the show episodes so far, but I wanted to let you know that if you are looking to build or scale a serious land business, perhaps a 6-figure second income or eventually a 7-figure land investing empire, Travis King's company, Land Investing Mastery, has the most current and innovative education in the space. Travis goes beyond the traditional microflip that you might be familiar with and shows you how to 10x your deal size and execute on strategies like subdividing, portfolio takedowns, land sniping. We're talking 6-figure per flip strategies. If you're getting your education from someone who isn't actively investing, you're more than likely going to hit some plateaus as you try to scale. If you want to learn how to avoid the saturated red ocean markets, skip over the small stuff, and learn how to become a boss land investor, then Travis is your guy. Travis has completed nearly 1,000 coaching calls in the last 2 years that I've known him, and he has his pulse on the market. He will tell you, though, Land Investing Mastery is not a factory. They're a boutique agency built on transformational, life-changing results. You see, I'm in a really unique position, and I really mean what I've just said above. In fact, I get to speak to a lot of investors from all sorts of different education, training, coaching background out there, and I get a very good view of things from all the one-on-one demo calls that I've done. Now, you may want some social proof. Head over to pebblerei.com/Travis and check out Travis's wall of love on his testimonial page. And while you're there, you can also learn more about Travis's training programs and his exclusive mastermind. So simply head over to www.pebblerei.com/Travis for more information. As to why did you decide to use Pebble?
Yeah. So I mentioned the vault earlier. I have a vivid memory, actually, of making the decision to buy Pebble or subscribe, whatever. I'm on the plane ride to Miami, reading The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. Great book if you haven't read it.
Yep.
In that book, there's a quote from IBM Watson. I have it written down here. So the founder had said, "I realized that for IBM to become a great company, it would have to act like a great company long before it ever became one." And that spoke volumes to me because, again, I was thinking about turning this into an actual business, right? And I realized if I wanted to turn this into an actual business, I had to behave like a company that was an actual business.
I love that.
Very few land investors that are running multi-6 and 7-figure businesses that don't have a CRM, especially in the land investing space. right? And so it made it a very easy decision for myself to say, okay, if I want to get to the next level, I have to behave like it. And I got to keep track of leads and know when to follow up and do all the things. And so
Right, right.
subscribe to Pebble and haven't looked back.
Awesome, awesome, and it's great to have people like yourself who provide us with feedback. And Pebble obviously is continuing to grow and evolve over time. So happy to have you, obviously, as a user of ours. But what else are you using in your sort of tech stack to kind of do what you got to do to really scale up your business here?
Yeah, good question. So on the due diligence side, I guess from pulling data, I'm using data tree and priced. I use both of them. I
Yep,
like data tree as a research tool a lot. Being
yep,
able to search up parcels on like a GIS map. I've also got MapRight, of course. I check
yep,
wetlands and floodplains on there and some other stuff. MapRight's got all kinds of cool stuff. If you're not on MapRight, I don't know what you're doing, but it's fantastic. Aside from that, from a phone service, now I'm using OpenPhone, and
yep,
OpenPhone's got a ton of functionality in there,
yep,
especially if you've got any kind of a team. It's great to be able to track that, and you can actually upload contacts into OpenPhone. You can also upload them into Pebble, so it's really nice when those leads come in. You're able to see who these people are if you're skip tracing at all. It's another thing when I skip trace data, because I do some cold texting and some cold calling.
yep.
I'm using direct skip as my skip tracing vendor there. um, Aside from that, I can't think of anything extraordinary that I'm using.
Appreciate you sharing that. And if you guys are looking for some of those tools that Ajay mentioned here, you can head over to pebblerei.com/tools. So we do have things like OpenPhone. Yes, it is an affiliate link, but listen, you get a discount out of using our link. If not, you can just go directly to openphone.com, a great service that I use even for Pebble's own business. But thank you for sharing that. I don't know if you know, Ajay, we just recently launched something called the Pebble Pricer. It is a free Chrome extension, so do check it out. It does make comping a lot easier.
Yeah.
Given we just launched, there are some kinks that we're working through. So those of you guys that are checking it out, go easy on the review on the Chrome store. You're speaking. I'm speaking directly to you guys. I am the one who is working on it with the team. So we are sort of working out some of those kinks, but it makes it very easy for you to head on to sites like Zillow or Realtor, Redfin, to be able to just run your comp directly from your browser. So if you just head over to pebblerei.com/price, you can grab this completely free tool. Um, Ajay, I mean, how can people get to know you? They may be coming across you. They may want to work with you in the future. I don't know what you have in plan, but is there a way that people can sort of follow you or get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty active on Instagram. I've actually got an investor account. The handle is investing with Ajay. So if you just get on there and DM me, happy to chat
Yeah,
with anyone if you've got questions, whatever. If there's any wholesalers out there that are looking to wholesale land and get it off quickly, I'll buy anything that's less than 50 cents on the dollar. Um, but yeah, that's how you can get a
awesome.
hold of me and follow my journey.
That's awesome. Ajay, you've gotten a chance to share with us how you got started. You gotten a chance to share with us some of the deals, a deal that you've done recently, and thank you for opening up to that, and some of the tools that you're using. Is there anything else? I know you're sort of really in that mindset space as well. Is there anything else you can share with our listeners? It's really interesting. I kind of want to actually, I want to touch on this really quickly. At the beginning, when you got started, I went through the same thing. Got my first deal with not as little as mailers as you, but it was 500 letters, or postcards, and with the yellow postcards. Nowadays, I use postcards like these with the map on them.
Mm,
But and then you went through a dry spell. That's exactly what I called it. Exact same thing. It was kind of a cursing to kind of think to kind of like, hey, I got a couple deals this easily, and then the next few months, I went through a dry spell. What was that sort of like, and what kind of kept you going? You mentioned 4 months. I had a dry spell of only 2 months, but 4 months, I always talk about momentum, and the only thing that really drains on somebody's momentum is time and no wins. So you are going through a 4 month period of no wins at that time. What kind of got you across that?
yeah, great question. I guess the first thing I'll say is I'm probably a little too stubborn sometimes. And so I had told myself I refused to be a one hit wonder. It was like, okay, I got one deal and I was really excited about it. And I told probably way too many people about it in my personal life. Like, I'm starting this business, I'm doing this thing. And then it was like, yeah, no, I refuse to be a one-hit wonder. And
Yeah,
I kept listening to interviews with other investors. And I
sure.
was like, okay, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that do this for a living, right? There are deals out there. America is massive. There's a lot of land in this country. I know I can figure this out. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
And as I look back on it, if we're being honest, it's really just a function of marketing. Like if you send out enough mail, you will always get deals, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Well, I say that there's a couple of caveats there, right? I think kind of the key metrics are marketing outbound, and then actually following up with your sellers, right? But if
Mm,
you're sending out mail, following up with people, comping accurately, getting out offers, you're going to get deals, right?
yeah.
And I've done a majority of my deals this year, I think over 25 in Florida. And so Florida is a very competitive market. So I don't bring that up to brag. It's just more of a, hey, there are deals to be had if you want them. Go get them.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you hear this a lot of times, but I get to meet a lot of people who are always hesitant to actually get started because of the amount of competition. There is always going to be people there. There is always going to be competition. There will always be people that are coming in and out. So,
Right.
Ajay, thank you for sharing that journey of yours. Again, if people are looking to get in contact with you, we will leave your Instagram link on our show notes. Everything that we've sort of mentioned here, we'll make sure we leave in the show notes here. You can find that under pebblerei.com/podcast. Ajay, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'd love to bring you back on another episode to talk about another deal that you've done. Maybe we can sort of, I forgot what I used to do another sort of a sub show within this podcast here where we're just going and talking specifically on a deal. So I'd love to have you back on that sometime in the future. But thank you very much for your time, Ajay.
Sure thing, Jesse. That sounds awesome. And yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
All right, take care. Before you stop this episode or hit the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the Landlocked Podcast by Pebble. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate any awesome reviews or ratings on whichever platform you are listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this on other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up about the Landlocked Podcast or the specific episode that may help them on their land investing journey. Once again, thank you so much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.